And any remote participants, can you please keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak. And ideally, not to use the camera facility at all, as it's going to affect the IT connection. The meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. Recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swellborough Council or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Well, welcome everyone, members, officers, to this Extraordinary Policy and Resources Committee meeting, including any visiting members, attending remotely, and any members of the public that have joined us too. The following staff are in attendance in the meeting or remotely. That's the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, the Revenues and Benefits Manager for Swellborough Council, Interim Head of Revenues and Benefits, Mid-Kent Services, Zoe Kent, Mid-Kent Services Director, Georgia Hawkes, Monitoring Officer, Robin Harris, and Democratic Services Representative is Kelly McKenzie. There is no fire drill planned this evening. If the alarm sounds, those attendants should leave via the exits indicated and assemble outside where directed. Do not use the lift. Please ask that if anyone in attendance, requires assistance, please let us know. Thank you very much. Are there any apologies for our absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Mike Baldock, Councillor Michael Henderson, and his substitute is Councillor Charles Gibson. Councillor Derek Parnell, his substitute is Councillor Chris Palmer.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any declarations of interest? So I'll take that as a no, thank you. But then myself, also going to introduce the report to us.
Thank you, Chair. 2 years have gone by since I started managing mixed-use and benefits, and I've used this time to really understand how a shared service, including Swell, would work. We have brought in all the changes that were recommended in January 2022. The bandit scheme has been in place for almost a year. The testing of the NEC document management system is completed, and we will go live in March. And the revenues and benefits calls and interviews have moved to customer services. An analysis of the different options is given in Table 7. This shows option 3 as the preferred option. This option brings savings and further resilience to the partnership. The timetable for the implementation of the shared service, if it is agreed by all 3 councils, can be found in Part 17, Table 10. Analysis of the risks is given in Part 18, Table 11. If Swell joining the shared service is approved. As with any changes, there are risks. However, what this change will do is to provide resilience to the service. During the last 2 years, work has been carried out to start to align the processes between Mid-Kent and Swell, and many of the processes are already aligned. We are currently reviewing the highest risks. Financial information is provided in the exempt Appendix 2. We understand there has been a concern that residents may not receive the same quality of support from the Revenues and Benefits team if they were to join the partnership. We have worked to mitigate this by moving the calls and interviews to the Swell Customer Services team. This change has been in place since November 2024 and is working well. This means that if a resident phones to report a change or to request advice, they will still speak to a Swell member of staff. They should therefore not notice the difference. I would at this point like to express my thanks to the Swell Revenues and Benefits team who have helped to bring in the changes. Over the past 2 years, they have worked together to bring in the banded scheme, the change in software and the calls moving to customer services. We also understand this is an anxious period for the team, so we are putting measures in place to help and support them through any change. Thank you.
Members, just before we go any further, just to remind you all that this is an open report with an appendix that's confidential. So if we need to go into matters within the appendix, then we'll need to go into a private session. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thanks, Chair. This was suggested, proposed some years ago when Councillor Bowles was leader of the council. I know because I had a long chat with him about it, and it was proposed at that time that we, well, basically Maidstone take us over and we do what Maidstone do, which is we don't see people. And that was an absolute no-no for us because we are very much a customer-facing organisation. And whilst I admit I'm a dinosaur, but there are some dinosaurs still out there. And so as long as I've got the assurance that our residents can speak to somebody face to face if they feel they need to, not you need to, but they feel they need to, then I am quite comfortable that this has increased in benefit leaps and bounds since that time that it was looked at those years ago. So as long as I've got that assurance from my residents, then I'm happy to support it.
Do you want to say anything about customer service?
So,
as well?
The reason that we have changed the way that we operate is for exactly that reason, because customers might want to come here or to the Gateway to talk to Swale staff about Swale issues, and by changing the customer service arrangement, by taking the customer services out of the revenues and benefits, it makes the revenues and benefits service the nuts and bolts of the technical working it out. The customer services will still be Swale. So if your resident phones to speak to Swale last Tuesday and they would phone to speak to Swale in August, they will get exactly the same service. What will change is if they then put a benefit claim in, or if their council tax something will get managed by the shared service, will get sorted by the shared service, but the customer contact will still be Swale.
Councillor Wilson, please.
Chair, our two are looking for insurances, I'm sure, that I think a clear and obvious way that the council can follow up with its fiscal targets, I suggest. What I'm looking for is, for instance, from a personal point of view, when I know and I've been trying to contact officers that potentially work for us through Mid Kent, I have sometimes found it difficult obtaining the exact officer that I need to speak to, and that appears to be a very small amount of challenge in terms of where to find those Mid-Kent officers, and that's I've gone through customer services before and they've had trouble locating them. So I too am looking for reassurances that even though it looks great on paper, these people are some of the most vulnerable people that Swale are dealing with. And I have the usual question of, are we following it up with a fantastic training package for those people taking on extra responsibility at customer service level, which it looks like we are. But also, are we offering the opportunity for those people that do suffer from internet and technology poverty, the opportunity to still get access, for instance, let's face it, the Gateway Centre or Swale. And the last thing I would like to say that even though the report is absolutely fantastic, part of it said that we were looking at options potentially coming away from Mid Kent. I suppose I'm still looking at my own model where I'm thinking, have we definitely looked at that option, what the viability would be to join other teams that are not Mid Kent, and is that, for instance, data that's held not within this report but in other places that have been dealt with before it's got here.
So, starting off with the ability to contact officers, I think what we're going to need is a directory so we know who to contact for what, so we can have that in place right from the beginning, the best people to contact. It's still a struggle, I think, always, that, I would hope, for example, in Maidstone, everyone knows that I'm the interim head of revenues and benefits, but a lot of the queries go through the head of housing, and you say, can you help this councillor or can you help the MP with this? So things do go astray, so we can put a directory over. I'll pass over to Georgia afterwards about problems that you may have had with Midkent. Other options, when this was initially looked back, going back to 2011, we looked at the option of outsourcing. And that was this has been in the business case, and this is talked about in the business case. In the meantime, between 2021 and now, 2021 and now, East Kent Services, which is the partnership between Canterbury, Dover and Thanet, the revenues and benefits and Folkestone and Hyde. But for revenues and benefits, it's the three authorities of Canterbury, Dover and Thanet. Civica, who provide that contract, have pulled out, and they've pulled right out of the market. The market for such contracts is much smaller now, that the suppliers, because the profit isn't in there for them to be making the profit, so that they're not interested in providing it. And so there haven't been options put forward of any companies, because we knew that there isn't the market out to provide it. Have we looked at other authorities? There isn't a partnership that would really work as well as within Mid-Kent, because we know Mid-Kent. So we haven't explored that in the same way.
There has been a conversation between the chiefs of East Kent, Dover, Canterbury and Thanet and myself. We did have a conversation about right at the beginning about whether it was something that they would be interested in looking at, because largely I was relatively new to Swale and I'd come from that area, so I had that conversation. However, at that time, it was becoming, they'd outsourced to Civica, and then as time went on, it became clear that Civica were leaving the market, so they weren't in the place to have those discussions with anyone else. But we did look at the timing to see if that was that was before Zoe, that was with Stephen Gibbs.
I was just one more project, that's all right. So if Civica pulled out of the market this contract, we'd be going forward looking at, I know it's difficult because we can't control what goes on with the contract, but are we fixing this?
It's not, we didn't go out. So what Canterbury, Thanet and Dover did is they outsourced to Civica.
So we will be.
We're not outsourcing, and by having the Mid-Kent Services, that does protect it in-house.
Councillor Gibson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a series of hopefully relatively quick clarifications from me. Just to understand a bit more in depth why our number of days is so much higher than the other councils, and why the time frame for those to come down is at such an extended period of years, about 5 years before we're bringing in lines. Just some clarity around that. In table 4, the staffing structures, just want to make sure I've understood the situation correctly. It reads to me as if there are 2 heads of revenues and benefits at Mid-Kent and here currently, which I don't believe is the case. It says there's 1 in each column. I think there's only 1 Zoe, so that's incorrect counting. So just to kind of clarify what the situation is there. Then sorry, do you want to answer them in one go or shall we plough on? Happy to pause and.
Shall I answer? I'll answer those 2 first. So the 2 posts, that saving is still being held at the moment. So that's there's a saving because I'm interim manager, head of reps and heads as well. So that's why we're showing that as part of this business case. And so that's why. Sorry, remind me of the first question again.
That's fine. So we've understood that.
Oh, the numbers of days. Sorry. Yeah. So we've brought in automation to the benefits team with universal credit information. That takes time to put all the processes in place. The reason that we've put the days dropping over a number of years is to give us time to grow the team and, for everybody to bed into being a Mid-Kent employee and to get all the processes in place. There's lots that are going to have to be changed, and what we didn't want to do was have targets that were perhaps unmanageable at first. I'm hoping that they'll be aligned fairly quickly and we'll be able to come back much quicker. But for the council tax collection, for example, if we were doing this and we hadn't been through COVID and cost of living crisis, but just before that, in 2018, we hit our highest collection rate ever. And so it's since then, because of the cost of living crisis, it's much harder that we're dealing with people that are struggling to make payments that's never happened to them in the past. And so we realise that it's better to try and collect what we're collecting at the moment and providing a service that we're picking up the vulnerable, and which the automation will help with. We'll then have officers help those that are struggling.
Thank you very much. And then finally, a similar point about coming together, in page 34, the table sort of implies that the age profile is a risk. The way it's phrased suggests that only Swale standing alone carries a risk of loss of confidence. I suspect that's a missing bit at the centre. I just want to check there were wildly different age profiles.
No, the age profiles are pretty similar, I'd say. It's the same across the board, same as it is in many teams.
Councillor Richard Parliament.
Thank you, Ken. I think it's fine. What it is, what you're saying is the back end will work as it does now. It's still going to be processed in a different location, but the actual physical contact that people have will still remain as it is. Are we confident our website is up to date? Because I take it the number that it says on here, we go through then was transferred through to compliance to the customer service centre. And if they send something here, we understand. And being data driven, particularly housing benefit, if it arrives here and then it's sent on, that might mean that there's a date that it's received is actually later than it should be.
So we'll be looking at all of those processes if the decisions are agreed. Post will still be able to come to Swale House. I'm sure that will still happen, and will be at the moment. We're looking for scanning to still happen in Swale House. So that should be the way it is. And, you know, we're always looking at how we deal with post for customers. It's an ongoing challenge that we need to ensure that we're picking up those that aren't able to do transactions online.
Telephone line went through.
Oh, and the telephone will still always come through to Swale House. Yeah, that number will be correct. But your comment on the website, we are working on all the website pages, but it takes time to go through them all and they're forever changing. So.
Thank you.
Councillor White, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for this. Start out by saying I'm in favour of change, and I think it's a good thing that we're doing. A couple of assurances, if I may. We've heard from others about it. It's important it works for the customers. Clearly, it has to work for the staff and us, but it has to work for the customers. And there's always teething issues. We saw it with planning, we saw it with waste services, teething problems. Can you give me some assurance? Two questions. First, can we have assurance that there will be enough staff in that first transition period, however long that is, 6 months or a year, to ensure that people's queries are dealt with properly until such time as the system beds in, as we know it should, and we get to the staffing levels that were outlined in the report. And secondly, under 2.6 on page 15, we talk about this new scheme being less reactive in terms of the council tax reduction scheme. Does that mean? Please assure me that doesn't mean it is less reactive. That's just perhaps the wrong word to be using, because we would expect that scheme, any new scheme, any new method of managing that scheme to be better than the one we currently have. So, two assurances, please. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. So I've met with the Chief Executive from Maidstone and with Larissa, and we've talked through lots of things. We're going to be having meetings with Georgia involved as well, so that as this progresses, we ensure that everything is working as we would hope it would do. So staffing numbers, we have some fixed term contracts at the moment, and we will be hoping to keep them on at first. At the moment, because we lost a few posts and we didn't know, or some staff left and we didn't know whether this was going to go ahead or not. We had some agency staff in council tax at the moment, so it wouldn't get to the 1st of April, for example, and we say you're gone. We will ensure we've got the right staffing levels in place, and we will advertise any posts that will be vacant to fill them. So our hope is to keep it going. I've had a conversation with the chief exec. So there's been lots of lessons learned over the years. So we will be keeping an eye on everything. So we would hope that the service for residents won't drop at all. We have so many peaks and troughs in Revs and Bends because, you know, we're just about to go into our annual billing process. And so we'll send the bills out the second week in March, first week in March, and then everybody starts phoning. And so then the phone lines are going to go mad. And so we have to pick all of that up. But as we've separated that out now from the work, as they're not picking up the phone calls, we hope we should be able to keep that going better. If anything isn't working, we will look at a way to sort it out. And I know, because I've had this 2 years where I've worked across the 3 authorities, I know who to speak to. I can speak to the heads of finance, I can speak to Georgia or any of the chief execs and to raise any issues we've got. So I would hope if anything starts to drop at all, that we can put a plan in place. The banding scheme, it's less reactive because it automates the information that comes in from the Department for Work and Pensions. So if a change changes somebody's benefit and it's within the band of their level of support, we don't have to write out to them. So in the past, every alert that came in from the DWP caused us to send out a council tax adjustment notice. So it's reduced the amount of notifications we send out, which reduces the amount of time somebody's payments change for council tax. So that's it probably.
That's what the word reactive means.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thanks.
Councillor Button, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3 points and one very, very picky minor thing on the actual paper. It's the comments are generally good poll. I'm heartened that I think it's a good idea. So in general, I'm supportive of it. But from Councillor Whiting's point, and sorry, actually didn't, but put a bit of doubt in my mind. The question I was going to ask was, would these proposed changes have any detrimental effect on residents? I was hoping the answer to that would have been likely long-term no. I know you're going to get blips every so often, so you can't make things perfect all of the time, every time. I get that. But would there be a longer-term significant detrimental effect? My doubt was there when you said that. So you said hope that there wouldn't be a decline or something like that. I think the staffing is a good response, and I think that don't cut anything until you actually think you've got all your bases covered and you're confident there. I know I asked this previously, but for purpose of this week, if this goes belly up, what's the get out of jail card? What is, and we can claim back, but we're not tied into this agreement for life, I presume, should the service not meet our needs. And my very, very picky point on this, on the page 3, and it says this is just me, alternative options considered, that's right, and rejected. They haven't been rejected yet because we haven't agreed. So it is, in theory, possible we could actually look at those. So it's just a terminology thing, but they haven't been rejected.
So if I just take the one on what has been on.
Yeah, and then I'll get the other one.
So, again, to give an example of when it went wrong with somebody, planning support started with 3 councils. When it started, Tunbridge Wells thought wasn't for them, and they pulled out. It isn't easy to pull out because the savings that this paper suggests that we can make, we have to find the money. Zoe is and will always be, she's got swale written through that. We're going to paint MKS on the outside, swale still on the inside. But Zoe will work for Maidstone, we can't just go, oh, great, we've got Zoe, we've got Teresa, we'll have all of those back. It doesn't work like that. We are not tied in for life. We have the responsibility to provide this service. We do it with colleagues and partners. East Kent Housing didn't go as well as they wanted. They just disbanded it. It was expensive. It was heartbreaking for some people, but it can be done. The most important thing for this council, as well as Tunbridge Wells and Maidstone, is that we get an excellent service for our residents. The biggest risk of not going with this is the ability for us and to get good, experienced, skilled staff, and by building that resilience, that if we have got some, just talking about one earlier on, we've got probably the person in Kent that knows most about business rates. But if he's off sick, we lose that while he's poorly, or when he's on holiday, or if he wins the lottery, or whatever could happen. So actually having that within a wider thing gives us resilience. But if it's wrong for Swale, we try and fix it, but ultimately we can't.
So I use the word hope, and because I wouldn't want to sit here and say to you, yeah, it's fine, it's all going to be good, it's all going to work. I would hope it's all going to work, but for example, the universal credit software, the automation isn't working at the moment. There's been a bug in it, and Capita are amending that at the moment. So across Mid Kent and Swale, we're not automating that work at the moment. We are, it's being processed manually by assessors. And so there's always things that happen. You know, I could have 5 staff off with COVID or whatever, lots of things can happen. And so that may throw the staff when they're in a new team working. So I would hope there's nothing, this is why we've got the risk assessment to look at things that could go wrong. I would hope that we will keep on track and things won't go wrong, but we always go through the period that we feel, and then we have Easter, then it's the Easter holidays, and there's May half term. So we're going into a process of things, but we're used to that, and we will have a bigger team, and this is the purpose of this, to give you more resilience. So I'm just using the word hope because it's better to be hopeful, and you know, this is why we're going to have lots of meetings to make sure everything's going on track. And in the past, perhaps people have buried their heads in the sand on some occasions and not said when things are going wrong. I would be saying straight away if things weren't working quite right, and then we can bring a plan in to help with things.
And just on your picky bit,
Sorry.
going to be picky back, it's fine. It's an officer report. So options considered and rejected is when the officer wrote the report. In order, they have to come up with a recommendation. The question is, how did you come up with that recommendation? What other things did you think about, and what didn't you do? So it is what Zoe, as the report author, considered and rejected. And the reason we put it in there is because you as members might say, actually, we like that. That's a good one. It's just what the officer, when they wrote the report, rejected, not that it has been rejected.
That's fine.
Councillor Chris Palmer.
That's just a clarification thing following on from Councillor String, as Councillor asked. It says about the benefits, how the residents that we look after and support will still have face-to-face contact if they need it. And then once it goes through to a claim, then that's where it becomes automated.
It's not necessarily automated.
Yeah.
It can be automated. So this is the same process as works now. If it's stayed in Swale, it will go over to a team of benefit processors to be processed.
Right.
It's just information coming in from the
So my
DW.
question about is my career background is health and social care, so I have done hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of form filling, and benefit forms in any shape or form are the worst thing to fill in. And if you are elderly and you've got a learning disability, which is mostly my background,
you need help to fill those forms in, will there still be somewhere that they can go and see someone and get that help and support to fill those forms?
There will still be the gateway. We've discussed all of this.
The answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. And we've spoken to citizens' advice. They're aware exactly what's happening. We have the welfare roles here as well that will hopefully continue. So we have got people to support people, and that's why we work with the voluntary sector as well, because obviously, you know, we only pick up the completion of so many forms, our own forms, but I know it goes wider than that.
I'm going to endorse councillor Wilson to come back.
I'm very sorry, it's a reactive question, thanks to my Democratic colleague's question earlier. I just wanted to really make sure that on risk, have you obviously gone through the process that universal credit is a ever-changing animal, and from its conception, it's not even complete, and that's nationally known. That I think last I heard it was only 70% complete. They were expecting changes to come. Have we kind of considered that in our risk in regards to the service that we're asking for here, and have we got the extra capacity to take on any changes? And have we thought about the residual services that Swale would need help with that? I'll always come back to comms eventually on any conversation, but obviously it's really important that, for instance, where you may have expected that support from other Swale departments moving over to the Mid-Kent model, have we kind of mitigated our risk? And that's not even told for us, so, but it is a risk to us, it is a risk to our systems. If central government changes, I notice here that you've got, if for instance, the principal change in one of your councils is part of the risk, but obviously another part of the risk is if national changes happen, and worst case scenario, they throw the bar, they go the bar forward again and change the entire system. Just asking, have we got the capacity there, and has that been thought about within the receiving the change?
It has, and we have a lot of changes all the time, and universal credit was meant to be completed by 2017, so it hadn't even really started then. So here we are in 2024, 7 years later, and we're nowhere near it being completed. When I talk to our colleagues at the DWP, our monthly meetings, they say it's getting closer, and it is getting closer, but we're left with the most difficult group to bring through. The people on employment support allowance will be left to last, and so we're aware that we need to provide a lot of support for those residents. And you know, Georgia and I, we do things, sometimes join as three authorities, and sometimes we do things individually. I was on a call earlier about some funding that we've been receiving through Kent County Council to provide software which analyzes the demographics of each borough across Kent. We have the Swale data here, and we were talking in the meeting about how this is done separately. We're not joining welfare up with Maidstone or Tunbridge Wells, because we all have our own voluntary groups, and each voluntary sector group is a bit different, and each demographic group is slightly different. We know here that the differences with the Isle of Sheppey, Faversham, Sittingbourne, and the Isle of Sheppey are completely different places, and we have different charities in each area, and so that's why the RISA and those that are left in Swale will be picking that up alongside us and telling Georgia and I what they need from us and how we need to work together, but that will be picked up.
So just to go back to the original question, we've considered that risk as well.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from you is that, for instance, you are going to be relying on those groups such as CAB. The only issue that we've got with that is that we are hearing rumblings around the CAB model that, for instance, they are themselves reporting quite a lot of financial problems as well to their model that they operate in as well. So it again comes back to, have we got the capacity to stand alone with or without these voluntary sector support in case they fall out of the sector, if that makes sense?
So we currently have one. I can't say that we will continue to have those, because that will be questions for members, not in this budget round, but potentially in future budget. We have the staffing that we need at the moment to be able to provide the services to residents. We don't know what residents needs, we don't know what's going to happen to anyone. If it changes and becomes more onerous, then we're not giving our services to Maidstone. We are a partnership of 3, from the leader who sits with the 2 other leaders and talks about the strategic, to me, who meets regularly with the 2 other chiefs. I'm a third of Georgia's manager, bless her, she has 3 of us. But actually it is, there isn't one person that gets anything better than the others. The thing about the revenues and benefits though, is when it changes the same. So if we've got to do a big training program, we have to do 1 training program rather than 3 training programs. So we can't say at all that we've got enough resource to be able to provide welfare benefit advice going forward. We don't know what's happening to all of the funding for the voluntary sector. We don't know whether they're all going to be here in 5 years. What we do know is each time that happens, we cross that bridge of Swale. We talk to our partners, but we cross that bridge of Swale. And we may say, you may say, because it's not my decision, you may say, we want more money for this. And Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells say, actually, we don't need any, and we'll just do it. It hasn't got to be the same services for everybody. We'll do what we want to do based on what you, the members, tell us to do. So it is in effect in your gift. But we will come to you if we think there is a problem. If CAB suddenly keeps up, then we'll do it. The other thing, if I may, Chair, this is a member decision, but it is only a third of your decision. You can decide what you'd like Swale to do, but if one of the other 2 partners, they're meeting on the 14th of February, and they're having their cabinet meetings concurrently, or at the same time even, if they say no, it doesn't matter. All 3 have got to say yes for it to work. So although it is your decision, what your decision is that you want to join. It is their decision as if they want us to join. And so I just didn't want you to think that you've all said yes, and then we come back and go, actually, it's not happening. You go, well, hang on, we've told you it is, you have a third of the decision.
Councillor Boyd, just very, very quickly, thank you, Larissa. Hypothetically, that if that work becomes does say, not for us, thank you very much. This, as it stands, falls by the wayside. But could the conversation then be reignited and actually, okay, well, actually, it's in our 2-party interest.
Yes.
It's not as 6 feet under as it may have been.
If it helps, I have some confidential indications from the 2 leaders that decided to go.
Yeah.
But it's not dead in water. We would just go back. So Glenn, there's a lot of people for a long time. But we would go back and we would say what are the issues, and we would try to.
Yes.
Yes, thanks, Jo. Just to quickly come back on that, because I think if memory serves, on the planning, I think it was in planning, or maybe in the environmental one, we kind of all 3 authorities had a meeting in Maidstone. And we all sat around a very big table and we had separate meetings, and various members were called to speak on various bits of the agenda, but we were all sort of sitting facing each other as we all took the same decision. And the glaring went on before the votes were counted, and I think it worked quite well in getting the result that we wanted.
I've
just got one thing which I wasn't bring up at the meeting, but I will do. That all of it all sounds good. The one concern I had was Big Kent services and coming into problems in the past, and it sounds like things have sorted out and better now. But more my thing is, Zoe obviously has been interim for 2 years, and going through this process, I think everything that's going to be changing and going through, I think the key person, sorry to put this, is Zoe. And is it going to be a case that Zoe would, with this changes, have that interim taken away? We just want to make sure that I'm happier in this case. We've known Zoe over the years, and really, I'm happier that it would be Zoe taking on through and being in the proper position, and we're not going to then lose them in a couple of years' time or whatever.
Okay. So one of the questions earlier was 2 posts, 1 Zoe. You're quite right. 2 posts, 1 Zoe. That's what we've currently got. So she's working across the 2. But the proposal, what will be consulted upon, should this decision be made, should all be in favour, is for Zoe then for there to be 1 post, 1 Zoe. And then she would take control over all of the Mid Kent and as well. And then when they come together, there'll be one team, 1 Zoe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it would be Zoe. Perhaps unless she wrote and went.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
To use those words.
Let's come back to it. I mean, that's just what was that stability to know that when changes come in, someone's seeing it through, and it being Zoe, which is the
Can I come back on that?
No.
So I've said to the directors of finance at each authority that taking the financial side apart from this, that I would have said, I would have come to Larissa as my employer and said if I didn't think this was going to work, and I would have spoken to Georgia too. I would have said it very early on if I didn't think it was going to work. It is going to be challenging joining Swell to Mid Kent. There's staff in Mid Kent that some were Maidstone, some were Tunbridge Wells, some of Mid Kent have never known anything different. But the difference for us this time is, and going back to when we looked at it back in 2011, so many people work from home now. We've got some plans for how we are going to get staff together so they get to know each other. And I'm looking forward to bringing that in. But also, because we have shared HR, we have shared IT, legal and audit, staff are very used to it. We had a meeting this morning to look at how this will go forward if the decision is a yes from everyone. And just changing the pay is so much easier because we have shared payroll and shared iTrent and things. So that everything like that is much easier than it was for systems in the, for when teams have moved in the past. So I couldn't have been in this role for 2 years and working across the 3 authorities and stood back at this point and said, no, I'm not doing it. I would have stood back ages ago if I wasn't going to do that. And I am looking forward to the challenge. It is going to be a very big challenge, and it is going to be difficult for some of the staff members, but I hope that we're going to take them on a journey. And some of the smaller teams like NDR and things, it will be easier for them to have more people around them. The subsidy claim here for housing benefit is a massive job, and we have 1 person doing it at the moment with me saying, oh, I'll do that. So things like that will be better, and there'll be resilience for all the teams.
So members, we've got 2 recommendations before us. Are you happy to take them both together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were proposed, please. Councillor Mr. Farmer, seconded. Councillor Harrison. Those in favour? But unanimous members, thank you very much indeed. We'll close the meeting. And then also, I suppose you've got the blue papers, copies of your hand and back, you can go to, please.